long ago, in the age when the first-person shooter had yet to have a name, even though there had been games like these for decades, in obscure places and dark corners of the early interwebs, in universities and on systems that are lost to time, or maybe the games were just very obscure, there came a game called Doom. And it brought with it Doom-likes or Doom clones. For what would we call them? What would we call these games that tried so hard to be Doom other than Doom clones? In time, we call them the first-person shooter genre. And some people may look back and say, well, maybe we should have called them that from the get-go. I mean, it's not like they were all just carbon copies of Doom, were they? They had their own spin on things, their own ideas, their own mechanics, their own identity. Well, there's a reason why we call them Doom clones. And this month we're going to explore a couple of them. Starting with what is, without a doubt, a Doom clone. And I mean, it is as Doom as it can be without facing legal consequences. Mostly because Raven Software actually worked with id Software to make it. This is Heretic. Now the footage in the background is from the Doomsday engine reimplementation of the id Tech engine, which adds a couple of new features to the game, to the infrastructure. Stuff like mouse look, vertical aiming, high resolutions, some texture, graphics filtering stuff. And oh yeah, I added the ability to jump because why not? Heretic was far from being Raven Software's first game. They had been making games for quite a while, and I mean, oh boy. Raven is not a name that is as popular today as it used to be back in the olden days. It was bought out by Activision, actually quite close to the release of Heretic, just a couple of years after it. And it did make a bunch of games that were quite good since then, but it all sort of went super sideways after Wolfenstein and Singularity, and since then the studio has been making just stuff for Call of Duty for about a decade. That is a fate worse than death for some, is it not? But back in the olden days, when it had the freedom to do what it wanted, it did Heretic. There is such a thing as the power of theme. A game may be mechanically a carbon copy of something else. Not even a game, a movie, a story, anything can be a carbon copy of something else, but if it has a different theme, and if that theme is done well enough, it can skate by solely on the power of that theme. Because fundamentally, Heretic is Doom. It is incredibly similar to it, not because of its basic technology, which is the same, you can't really ignore that, but because it uses kind of the same design principles. Though I'd say maybe the maps are a bit more vague. It's probably because I haven't played it in like whenever 2003 was, but I found myself struggling a bit to remember where stuff was and got lost in the process. That used to be a common thing for me way back in the day when I started playing games like these. Took me a while to get my bearings, to realize where I could go, where I couldn't go, what could be achieved with just a little bit of patience that, well, I don't really have as much of these days due to time constraints. But anyway, Heretic is, if you will, a fantasy version of Doom. It's set in a world of high magic, of demons and sorcerers and elves. You're playing as an elf, and your mission is to fight the evil serpent rider lord things. I've honestly forgotten the story. I finished the second one too, and I still don't remember any of the story. But the basic idea is that you start off in a level, you kill everything in it, you get a bunch of weapons, a bunch of power-ups maybe, some ammo, some health, you find the end of the level, you reach it, and the map shows up that tells you where you were, where you're going, gives you a score, and bam, you repeat the process with a new level. And to make things even more Doom, most of your weapons, they are just reskins of those in Doom. The stick you start with is pretty much just a punch. Your first mage wand staff thing, that's kind of just a pistol. The crossbow doesn't really shoot like a crossbow, it honestly shoots a bit like the Wookiee crossbow in the Jedi Outcast game, which was also made by Raven. It behaves a bit like a shotgun. Then you got something that sort of behaves like a chain gun, like a plasma gun. You have basically a rocket launcher, but what really sort of doesn't fit is that your ultimate weapon doesn't explode everything on the screen. No, it fires balls, and the balls will explode and kill everything on the screen, but it's mechanically and visually quite different. And then you've got, well, there's an analog for the chainsaw, the Necromancer gauntlets, but they work in a different way. When you use them, you become magnetized and just get drawn to the enemy that's right in front of you, and you shock them until they die, or until you die if you have low health and the enemy keeps squonking you over the head. But it doesn't end here. Heretic redeems its copy-pasting of weapons by implementing something truly miraculous. The Tome of Power, or the Power Tome. I forgot what it was called. It is a power-up that you find throughout the map and you can activate whenever you want to. This is one notable difference between Heretic and Doom. It's something that a lot of first-person shooters would implement that wasn't an id Software thing. It is the idea of the inventory that you can use whenever you want to, not whenever you pick up a power-up, that's when it's automatically used. I don't know. You pick them up and you store them, and you use them when it is convenient for you, not when you find them. This way it's not as much of a set piece, if you will. If you find a power-up that's in the middle of an empty room, you're not gonna be instantly surrounded by enemies that will make you use that power-up because it's activated by default and you have no choice. That is the Doom method of using power-ups. No, instead you can save that power-up for when you need it most. And in the case of the Tome of Power, when you needed it most was when you wanted to have even more fun with your weapons, because when it's activated, it just turns them into a more powerful, more awesome, different version of themselves. Your stick now glows. I don't know what it actually does when it glows. I think it does more damage. Your gauntlets drain life. They become one of the most powerful weapons in the game. You can just use them to cling to enemies until they die and feed you. It's a surge of power, if you will. Unlimited power! That really makes the game shine. Even your Elven Wand just starts hammering away like a machine gun. The crossbow gets even bigger bolts. The chain gun, I forgot what it was called, I think fired faster. The plasma gun sort of starts shooting missiles instead of the rocket launcher. And the thing that was supposed to be the rocket launcher fires a stream of hellfire, melting the face of anybody in front of you. Now, the game is messed up, in my opinion, is that it relegated all the... Oh yeah, there's the mace thing, the one with the balls, shoots bigger balls of, I imagine it's not steel, because they blow up. But anyway, what it could have done would have been to relegate that alternative mode to an alt fire. Just think how awesome it would have been to be able to use that from the get-go as an option. You're instantly doubling the amount of guns you have without needing to change the number of guns you have, or wands in this case, it's magic based. And with some tweaked statistics, some extra ammo consumption maybe, it could have been balanced out. Not that it matters, I mean, these weren't what you would call games that you could super duper mega ultra balance out, because again, you would find invulnerability power-ups that you could save for later, and you could stack 9 of them if you wanted to. It was a game built to reward exploration even more than Doom. This was long-term stuff here. This was stuff where you could plan in advance what you would keep until when. Well, if you already played it through once and knew what would happen to you in the future. But even if you didn't, you could sort of presume that at some point you're gonna fight a big bad boss and may need more ammo, so you could get a bag of holding to hold more ammo, or some invulnerability, or some power tomes, some flight ability, if you will. Well, not a matter. Flight was only just for getting around the environment, for traversing the lava fields, because, well, it was a Doom clone, so no vertical aiming, and it didn't really matter if you were at the same level as the enemy or not, unless you were using a stick. And that change, the power tome, the extra weapon firing modes, they'd make it feel like a different game. Well, that and the fact that the enemies, well, the first enemy you encounter flies at you in great numbers and swarms you. The enemies are not what I would call carbon copies. You fight winged demons, you fight golems, you fight big giant heads that across the void they come a warping, I guess. And then there's those things to sort of look like they're a mix between scorpions and knights with blades instead of hands. Axe blades. Apparently they're called the saber claw, and according to the wiki, yeah, if you can't fly, you can absolutely just dodge them. So yeah, flight does have some uses if the enemy can shoot at a distance, which in this case, no, they cannot. But most of the other ones can, and you won't have a fun time moving in the air and trying to figure out which way's up, which way's down. I mean the controls, because it's, well, this is not a 3D game. It wasn't built to be 3D. Your movement was not made to be really all that fluid in 3 dimensions. So for the most part, you're sticking to the two-dimensional sector of reality. This game's reality, at least. Or any of them. Heretic was a successful game. And it was so because its theme worked well. Maybe not everybody's going to be into the whole demons invade Mars, sci-fi, demonic mumbo-jumbo, but maybe a lot of people are into the fantasy, demonic mumbo-jumbo. It's kind of the same theme, but it's coming from different direction. It's still about undead and demons, but well, they demons or imps, the flying little ones. I'm not even sure anymore. But anyway, it's a variation on a theme now that I think about it. It's coming from the past, not from the future like Doom was. And because it had enough differences so that it wasn't like a carbon copy, it was a clone, but not a perfect one, it was really, well, popular. That's something that's valid for a lot of games. I mean, look at League of Legends. It's a clone of Dota, but it's not an exact clone. It has slight differences, and it is wildly successful. Whereas if you were to look at Heroes of New Earth, which is a complete carbon copy, minus the names, that went nowhere. Or Demigod, which was way too different, that went nowhere as well. But because it was different enough and similar enough to the original, League of Legends succeeds, and that is the same for Heretic. Now sure, it wasn't as successful as Doom. Yeah, Doom was kind of big, but it was popular enough that it got at least 2 sequels and a bunch of other stuff. And it is also one of the reasons why we call this genre the Doom clone, because right after Doom came games like Heretic that were literal clones of the game. They used the same tech, the same engine, the same weapon ideas, the same enemy ideas, the same kind of level design, the same kind of drive to push the player to explore. But it did so with incrementally better, or at least incrementally different ideas. Like that enemies can gib, they can explode in very, very kooky, funny ways. They'll make your parents go, Timmy, what are you playing, Timmy? This is the devil's work, Timmy. This is the devil's work. No, Mom, I'm killing Satan. Look. No, Timmy, that's not killing Satan, Timmy. You're gonna have to go to church, Timmy. But Mom, I don't wanna. Well, tough luck, Timmy. You're gonna have to go to church, because under it, about 14 floors under it, or 16 floors, I forgot which, there's hell itself. I guess, I don't know, I kind of forgot where this was going. I just started talking about things. Also, it's kind of hard to talk. I'm in the middle of having some molars remodeled. It's actually painful to talk a bit, because I keep cutting my tongue on a molar that's a bit too tharp at the moment. So that should be fixed in a week or two. If you want to play Heretic, well, you're in luck. It's on Steam. The entire series is on Steam. It's not on GOG though. Haven't quite figured out why it's not on GOG. But if you want to go, then you're in luck, because it's probably gonna be on sale. It's €5 right now, which may be a bit tiny bit too much. I mean, it's kind of old. Okay. It's in the Shadow of the Serpent Riders version. Actually, I think it was on sale up until like 5 hours ago in the Halloween sale, which I kind of missed. So if you want to get it on sale, get a time machine so you would already have bought it by the time the show airs, or wait until the end of the month when the Steam big autumn sales begin. It's worth a go. At least if you haven't played it, at least it's worth a go, because if you played Doom, you kind of want to see where the idea can go while still being basically the same idea. Also, the game does recognize the codes, the cheat codes for Doom. I entered it because I forgot where to go and wanted the key to a place. But they do the opposite, so that's always fun to see. Next week, we will move on to Bloodier Matters, but going on the same theme of the Doom clones. Goodbye.